Hi students, good morning. I hope all of you are keeping well. Today we are going to start our new chapter, and this new chapter deals with a special type of force. And this force is acting between two surfaces in contact. When one surface starts to slide over another, or when a surface tries to move over another surface, to resist or to oppose that relative motion, a force will be generated parallel to the plane of contact. I think now you can realize which is that force, and that force which opposes the relative motion of surfaces is known as frictional force. Frictional force. So in this chapter we are going to discuss some properties of friction or the frictional force. So as I already told you, this is the force which is acting between two surfaces in contact. It is a parallel force acting between two surfaces in contact. Whenever a surface is placed over another, suppose whenever book is placed on a table, between the surface of book and plate, there is no such a frictional force. And when you are applying a force on the book and tries to move that book over the table, surface of the table, then only the frictional force comes to play. Which means if there is a relative motion or if there is a try for moving over another surface, to oppose that try or that motion, frictional force is generated. So that is frictional force. So frictional force generates when a body tries to move over the surface of another one. Then to oppose that relative motion along the surface of contact, the frictional force will act. That is frictional force. So what is the reason for this frictional force? What is the reason for this frictional force? So there are two hypotheses regarding the generation of friction. That means, for the origin of friction, there are two hypotheses. One is the classical theory and the other is modern theory. Classical theory of friction and modern theory of friction. Classical theory of friction says that it is due to the interlocking of irregularities present present on the surface of bodies which are in contact. Even though we are saying that it's a smooth polished surface, when you are observing that surface with a microscopically we are observing, you can find that that surface is also having some ups and downs. And when you consider two surfaces are in contact, these two surfaces are having this kind of ups and downs. And when one body starts to slide over the another, what happens is these irregularities are getting interlocked. So that opposes the relative movement between or relative movement of one surface over the another. And that is one of the reason for frictional force. That says the classical theory. Classical theory says that it is due to the interlocking of irregularities present on the surfaces in contact. That is the origin of frictional force. That is the origin of frictional force. So that is classical theory of friction. Classical theory of friction, and there are some drawbacks regarding this classical theory. One of it is, it says that it is due to the interlocking of irregularities over the surfaces which are in contact. So when the area of contact increases, the chances of interlocking of irregularities also increases. So frictional force will increase when the area of contact increases, but practically it is not so. Practically, it is not found that as the area increases, the frictional force also increases. So that is one of the drawback of classical theory. And the other one says that whenever the it is due to the irregularities, and when we are polishing the surface, the frictional force will reduce. But again, practically it is found that even though the surfaces are getting polished, then also frictional force will increase. As the smoothness increases, then the frictional force also increases. So, due to these two reasons, this classical theory cannot be considered as the reason for origin of friction. Hence, we can define the second theory, that is the modern theory. According to the modern theory, it is not due to the interlocking of irregularities, but it is due to the strong atomic or molecular forces at the point of actual contact. Suppose when we are saying that a body is in contact with another one, actual contact area is much less than the um, apparent contact area. Apparent contact area is much higher than actual contact area. So at the actual contact area, when two surfaces are in contact, then their molecules are having greater adhesive force. Adhesive force are the forces between two different types of molecules. So when two different surfaces are in contact, then at the actual contact point, there should be a higher adhesive force. And due to the higher adhesive force, since the area of contact is less, a greater pressure will be generated. That means greater adhesive pressure will be generated. So as to maintain a movement, you have to overcome that pressure. So for that, for overcome that pressure, you have to give extra energy. So that is actually the reason for friction. That is actually the reason for friction. So one of the drawback of our classical theory is as the area of contact increases, frictional forces also increases. But that can be eliminated using this modern theory. Why or how? Because as the area of contact increases, the adhesive force also increases. When the area of contact increases, adhesive force also increases. But the adhesive pressure, that is adhesive pressure is force per area. As the adhesive force increases, area also increases. So the adhesive pressure remains constant, which is responsible for the friction. So it is found that with the increasing area of contact, the frictional force is not increasing. It is a constant between two surfaces. And the other one is, if the surfaces in contact are made smooth beyond a certain limit, then the distance between the molecules of two surfaces decreases. So the adhesive force between them and hence adhesive pressure increases. This results in increase in the frictional force. So these two explanations overcome the drawbacks of our classical theory, and it is widely accepted now. The reason for friction is the molecular or atomic adhesive force at the area of actual contact. So that is the modern theory of friction. Okay, so that are the two theories regarding origin of friction. So we can conclude friction is an opposing force which comes into play when one body actually moves over or tries to move over the surface of another body. And there are two classical two theories regarding the origin of friction. One is the classical theory, which says roughness is responsible for the friction, and the other is the modern theory. It says strong atomic or molecular force is responsible for the friction. Okay, so we have defined friction and we have seen the reason for friction. And we can say that frictional force is a self-adjusting force. It's a self-adjusting force. And whenever a surface of a body slides over the surface of another body, each body exerts frictional force on the other, which is parallel to the surfaces in contact. Along the surfaces in contact, the two bodies are, according to Newton's third law, if one body opposes the movement of another, the same force will be exerted by the second body on the first also. Okay. So we can say that it is a self-adjusting force. And suppose a book, a thick book is at rest on a horizontal table. A book is placed on the surface of a horizontal table. So the book is acted upon two forces. Then on that book, two forces are acting. Which are those two forces? The book is placed on the surface at rest. So it will experience two forces. Its weight acting in the downward direction and the reactionary force exerted by the table on the book. That is a reactionary force exerted by the table on the book. And these two are acting through the same line of action. Which is that same line of action? That is through the center of gravity. Weight is acting downwards through the center of gravity. Reaction force is acting in the upward direction through the center of gravity. So they will cancel off and it will be remaining at equilibrium. That is, again I will show you now. See the first diagram, in which mg is acting in the downward direction and p is a reactionary force acting in the upward direction. For clarity, these two are made at two different lines, but remember they are acting at the same line. They are acting in the same line. Okay, so this is a case when there is no another force acting on the body. See the second diagram. In the second diagram, you are applying a force F in the horizontal direction. You are applying a force in the horizontal direction so as to move that book. But still, since the force is not sufficiently enough to move, it will not move, but this force tries to move the force. Then what will happen there? Actually, the reactionary force is not acting in the same line with mg, but it is making an angle. It is inclined towards the left, because the moving force, applied force, is in the right direction towards the horizontal. So this will move towards the left. That is, the P will slanting towards its left. Okay, P is slanting towards the left. So the force P can be resolved into two components. This P can be resolved into two components. And one component is acting vertically upwards, which is termed as the normal reaction. And its horizontal component is acting in the left direction, that is denoted as Fs. That is denoted as the Fs, which is known as the static frictional force. So actually the component of P in the horizontal direction opposes F. That is, Fs is opposing F. Since F and Fs are acting in the opposite directions. So what we can conclude? We can conclude that Fs, the static frictional force, is opposing the applied force. Okay, so as you increase the applied force, what will happen to the direction of P? Its inclination increases. As its inclination increases, Fs component also increases. As inclination of P, actually as F increases, inclination of P also increases towards left. Then as the inclination of P increases, Fs also increases. So for a particular value of F, inclination of P will become theta s, as marked in the second and third diagram, theta s. For that, component of Fs is maximum. Component of Fs is maximum. When component of Fs is maximum, when you are applying F further, what will happen? Actually, Fs got its maximum value. Now, F and Fs are equal at that particular moment, no movement is possible. And again, you are increasing the value of F, then Fs will not increase further. Then what will happen? The frictional force, static frictional force is insufficient to oppose the applied force. Then the block starts to move. So the moment where the static frictional force is maximum, the moment where the static frictional force is maximum, that is known as the limiting friction. That is known as the limiting friction. Okay, so limiting friction is the maximum value of the static frictional force which comes into play when the body just begin to slide over the surface of another body. When the body just slides over the surface of another body, then the static frictional force will be maximum, and that maximum static frictional force is known as the limiting friction. That is known as the limiting friction. So the limiting friction is the maximum static frictional force, and that will be the minimum applied force to move that book, or whatever may be the object. To move that, minimum force applied should be equal to the limiting friction. Limiting frictional force is the minimum applied force to move that object. And again, for the fourth diagram, it is clear that now the body tries to move over the surface, then static friction changes to kinetic friction. So indirectly, here we are defining two types of frictional force. Which are these two frictional force? One is the static frictional force and the other is kinetic frictional force. Static frictional force is the frictional force which opposes the movement when there is no relative motion. Again, kinetic friction is the frictional force existing between two forces are in contact when they are in relative motion. When a body just tries to slide over the another, a force is opposing that try, so that force is known as the static friction force. And when the body slides over another one, then that opposing force is known as kinetic friction. Okay, so these are two types of frictional force. Static friction and kinetic friction are the two types of frictional force. And then a limiting friction is a particular static friction. That is, a maximum static friction is known as limiting friction. So regarding the static friction and kinetic friction, we can have laws of limiting friction and laws of kinetic friction. Laws of limiting friction and laws of kinetic friction. First of all, we can see what are the statements or what are the postulates of limiting friction, laws of limiting friction. So simple three statements are there, which is clearly given in your textbook. So I didn't make the slide here, so you can read. I will read now. The magnitude of the limiting static friction depends upon the nature of the surfaces in contact and on their roughness. It does not depend upon the size, area of the surface. Limiting friction depends upon nature and roughness. And it is does not depends upon the area of contact. Force of friction is tangential to the surfaces in contact and its direction is opposite to the direction of movement. Already we have said these things. And for the given surface, limiting frictional force is directly proportional to the normal reaction R. Limiting friction is directly proportional to the R. So R and mu s are directly proportional. Sorry, Fs and R are directly proportional, and Fs is equal to mu s into R. That is written here. Fs is proportional to R, and here Fs is equal to mu s into R, where mu s is known as mu. It is mu, and mu s is known as coefficient of limiting friction. So Fs is equal to mu s, and limiting friction is directly proportional to the normal reaction, and limiting friction is equal to mu s into normal reaction, where mu s is the coefficient of limiting friction. Okay, so these are the three statements for the law of limiting friction. These are the three statements for law of limiting friction. Similar arguments you can have for the kinetic friction also. Law of kinetic friction. Law of kinetic friction says that the force of kinetic friction is independent of area of contact. It is again independent of area of contact between two bodies, provided normal reaction remains constant. And limiting friction is depending upon normal reaction. So the kinetic friction is almost constant for a given pair of two surfaces placed in contact, and it acts opposite to the direction of relative motion. Again the same. The force of kinetic friction is directly proportional to the normal reaction, which is present as mu k proportional to Fk proportional to mu k into R. Similar to the static friction, kinetic friction is also directly proportional to the normal reaction, and Fk is equal to mu k into R. So mu k is equal to Fk divided by R, or mu s is equal to Fs divided by R. Very similar. Static friction is replaced by kinetic friction there. Okay, so these are the laws of limiting friction as well as law of kinetic friction. Three simple statements. So we now defined types of friction, that is static friction and kinetic friction. Then a particular value of static friction is known as the limiting friction. That is a maximum value of static friction, which is the minimum force that should be applied so as to make the relative motion. Okay, then we have seen the laws of limiting friction and laws of kinetic friction, which are very similar to each other. Okay, so we have already seen that the frictional force Fs increases static frictional force. Static frictional force increases as the applied force increases. Initially, as the applied force increases, our static frictional force is also increases, reaches a maximum value. After that, friction force just decreases, then increases slightly and remains constant thereafter. Didn't get anything. Total confusion. Listen to my words carefully. As our applied force increases, frictional force also increases. They are directly proportional as well as. Okay, so when you are increasing the applied force, static friction force is also increasing, and it reaches a maximum value. What is that maximum value? That is the static limiting friction, or simply limiting friction. And after that, if you are increasing the applied force, the friction force just decreases, then it starts to move, the relative motion starts. After that, the friction force remains constant as kinetic friction. Still confusion. I will show you a graph. I will show you a graph. Okay, see this graph. This graph is plotted against force of friction and applied force. Applied force is taken along x-axis and frictional force is taken along y-axis. Frictional force is taken along y-axis. From O to C, as the applied force increases from O to C, frictional force is proportional to F. Frictional force is equal to F. As F increases, frictional force also increases. It reaches to the point A, up to the point A. For at the point A, Fs will become maximum, that is the limiting friction. After that, again you are increasing the applied force, frictional force decreases and slightly increases and remains constant after that. So at the point B, the frictional force become a steady value from C to, that is frictional force, limiting friction to the steady state of kinetic friction. This is known as the breakaway. That region is termed as breakaway, and that is also the kinetic region from C to onwards. That is kinetic region, and after that at B the steady state comes. So you can say that Fk is equal to mu k into R. Mu k into R, where mu k is the coefficient of kinetic friction. So this is a static region where there is no relative motion. As you increase the applied force, static frictional force is also increases up to the point A, where static frictional force will become maximum, that is the limiting friction area. After that, if you are applying the applied force, frictional force just decreases and again it increases up to a particular level, but still it is less than maximum static friction, that is a limiting friction. That is, kinetic friction is less than limiting friction. Kinetic friction is less than limiting friction. That is also an important result. Okay. So this graph shows how frictional force changes according to the applied force, or how frictional force is related to the applied force. Anyhow, now we can consider different situations where frictional force is existing or frictional force plays its role. Suppose a block of mass m is placed on an inclined plane. You are asked to remember the diagrams that we have already made for free body diagram analysis. In free body diagram analysis, before going to the free body diagram analysis, different situations we have to find, and all those different situations, which are the forces acting and which are the directions in which those forces are acting, all those we have already made. So you recollect those forces and its directions while we are discussing this content. Okay. Anyhow, suppose we are having a block of mass m placed on an inclined plane making an angle theta with the horizontal. That means the angle of inclination is theta, and on that inclination you are placing a block of mass m. And if that theta is sufficiently enough for keeping that block at equilibrium, that means it will not move down. Slowly you are increasing that inclination, you are increasing that angle of inclination. We are not applying any force on the block. You are not applying any another force on the block, but you are just increasing the inclination. It is very simple. You keep a pen on a book, and that book is now on the table. You just lift up one end of that book, and slowly that pen starts to slide down for a particular inclination. That is only the situation. A block is there in the inclined plane, but it is not moving down. We are not applying any force, but we want to move it down or slide it down. What to do? You just increase the inclination. Okay, come, let us see. Okay, here is theta is the angle angle of inclination, and a block of mass m is placed, its weight mg is acting downwards. So this angle is also theta. Mg cos theta is perpendicular to r, and mg sin theta is acting in the downward direction, but it is not moving down. Why? A frictional force is acting in the opposite direction, that is Fs. So from the diagram we can write that Fs is equal to mg sin theta since it is in equilibrium, and Fs minus mg sin theta equal to 0. And R is equal to mg cos theta because they are acting in opposite directions, and since there is no movement in that particular direction, so R is equal to mg cos theta, R minus mg cos theta equal to 0. But we are already defined that Fs is equal to mu s into R. We have already defined this relation, Fs is equal to mu s into R. So this Fs you can replace by mu s into R. So mu s into R is equal to mg sin theta s. This equation we have written at the situation where theta equal to theta s. I already told you are increasing the theta, and for a particular value of theta, that is theta s, the body starts to move down, where the Fs is the limiting frictional force. Limiting frictional force Fs is equal to mu s into R, where theta is equal to theta s. Are you getting me? When you are increasing theta, Fs also increases, and it reaches the maximum value when theta is equal to theta s. That is the limiting frictional value. At that moment you can write Fs is equal to mu s into R. Again you are increasing the inclination, then it slides down. So this is the condition where the situation where the block just slides down. So mu s into R is equal to mg into sin theta s. So R is equal to mg cos theta s. R is equal to mg cos theta will become theta s now. So when you are dividing these two, you can have R and R get cancels, mg and mg get cancels. Mu s is equal to tan theta s. Mu s is equal to tan theta s. Okay, when it slides down, this static friction you can replace by kinetic friction. So mu k is equal to tan theta k. Mu s is equal to tan theta s, or mu k is equal to tan theta k. So the minimum angle of inclination, we are increasing theta gradually, and for a minimum angle of inclination, the body placed on it just begins to slide down. For a minimum value of inclination, the body placed on it just slides down, and that particular angle is known as angle of repose. That is known as angle of repose. Angle of repose. So the angle of repose is the minimum angle of inclination at which the body placed on it just slides down. Just slides down. Thus the coefficient of limiting friction is equal to the tangent of angle of repose. Mu s is equal to tan theta s. So tangent of angle of repose is equal to limiting friction. Limiting friction, coefficient of limiting friction. Mu s is equal to tan theta s. Coefficient of limiting friction is equal to tangent of angle of repose. And once the blocks start sliding, I already told you, once the blocks start sliding, the angle of inclination will become theta s, will become theta k, that will be less than theta s. So when the just slides down, when you are decreasing the angle of inclination little bit, then also it will slide down. So that is theta k, which is very similar to theta s but slightly less than theta k. Sorry, theta k is slightly less than theta s. So mu k is equal to tan theta k, where mu k is the coefficient of sliding friction or kinetic friction. So this is the first situation where the frictional force plays its role, which means whenever a body is placed in an inclined plane, the frictional force tries to keep the body at its place. If you are increasing without any force, without applying any force, you are increasing the angle of inclination, the body slides down. So the frictional force retains its equilibrium state up to its maximum value, that is the limiting friction. After that it slides down. So when it starts sliding down, then the angle of inclination should not be like that, but it will be less than theta s, where theta s is the angle of repose. Okay, so that's all for today. Revise this chapter, make the note, and be up to date in your studies. Okay, we'll meet in the next class. Till then,